As MSUA, as Manicaland State University of Applied Sciences, we stand firm for this debate topic. Redefining the key points, ladies and gentlemen, development can be considered as the objective of moving towards a state relatively better than what previously existed. It could mean positive change. More important, redefined as takes priority. Democracy can be viewed as an arrangement, a social contract by which a nation agrees to live together and be governed by a set of principles, rules, and institutions. Redefined, our motion reads, moving towards a state relatively better than what previously existed takes priority over a social contract to govern. Ladies and gentlemen, the gist of our argument is these two do not exist independently, but they depend on each other. Where development takes priority over democracy, where development is much more important or should supersede democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a global village. Hence, Zhao Ziyang of China, forgive my pronunciation, premier during the 1980s argued, democracy is not something that socialism can avoid. We should at least delay democracy for a very long time. Hence, China is the least democratic state in the world, but in the last few decades, this Asian nation has managed to experience impressive economic development at a much faster rate than democratic countries in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, what would you rather do? Faint in the streets or have food? People need food before they need rights, and getting the economy in good order is much more important than a perfectly good system of governance. Economic development, ladies and gentlemen, will lead inevitably to democracy. Economic growth produces an educated and entrepreneurial middle class that sooner or later begins to demand its own control over its fate. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, with this introduction, our argument is based on 3 points. The first, democracy requires a supporting structure for sustainability. The second, international community recognizes the need to develop before anything else. Third, development is a utilitarian approach to ethics. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, as I stand in front of you, I stand firm for our topic. Development is more important than democracy. Development should take priority over democracy. And with that, we say thank you.
And I'm representing the non-affirmative delegation, which stands firmly against the motion, which reads, development is more important than democracy. And we have taken the liberty to redefine the motion as follows. The process of growth is more crucial than the belief in political freedom and equality. Now, our main stance as the non-affirmative delegation is, democracy allows for people empowerment, which inevitably leads to satisfactory development economically, socially, and politically. So, ladies and gentlemen, as the non-affirmative delegation, what we are stating is that development is for the people. Therefore, it should not be divorced from democracy, as the minute you divorce democracy from development, it leads to infringement of human rights, and it will no longer be for the people, because development is for the people, especially in economical, social, and political growth. Ladies and gentlemen, my next point moves on to say that if we prioritize development over democracy, it defeats the purpose of why we are even looking at development. Our stance as the non-affirmative delegation is saying that development should not take precedence over democracy, because democracy is for the people. Therefore, once it is put at the forefront, the development that follows after will be for the people, and it will not lead to infringement of human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, if we look at development from a non-democratic point of view, it means we are looking at we are consolidating power on one group of people and in a certain person. Therefore, it defeats the purpose of development. As I've already stated over and over again, development should focus on people. And the minute we consolidate power on only one group of people or on a certain person, in saying that they should be the ones that should have the main focal point of development, it defeats the purpose of having people that actually look at development as for themselves. And therefore, that's why we are saying as the non-affirmative delegation that democracy should take precedence over development, as development is for the people. Ladies and gentlemen, before I leave the podium, I will leave you with this quote. Power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. Therefore, this goes to allude that the minute we consolidate power in only a group of people without making democracy our focal point, development will not be in focus with the people that are actually going to have to benefit from the development, but instead it is more focused on a certain group of people without consideration of the population, of the general population, the minorities and the majority, which is the focal point of democracy. And with this, I thank you.
Now, let me get straight to the rebuttals. The non-affirmative side came here and told us that empowerment is for the people. Yes, we agree, empowerment is for the people. And now, let us take you back to our basis of argument. We are saying, do not divorce these two, definitely. Why won't you practice democracy? We want democracy, but let us give priority to empowerment, because because empowerment acts as a precursor to development. Right, then they came here and said that democracy should focus, development should focus on people. Yes, indeed, it should focus on people, but let it focus on people who are already developing. Let it focus on people who already have the means to be focused on. And then going back to our point and reinstating our case, we are saying that democracy requires a backing structure. Ladies and gentlemen, it is tantamount to having a currency without having reserve banking. Ladies and gentlemen, how can you advocate for democracy in a situation whereby there is no development? First of all, let us develop. Let us have the means so that we can be able to empower our people. Then our next point bases on the fact that the international community already recognizes development. That is why you find that the highest body of governing or of putting order in the world, the United Nations, has focused on first the Millennium Development Goals, and then next the Sustainable Development Goals, and never democratic goals, ladies and gentlemen. What we are all about is development. What we want is development for our people. Then when our people have developed, then we can bring in this democracy. Then we can enjoy all our democracy because we have been empowered, because now we are developed. And then our last point touches on the fact that development is an approach of ethics that is called utilitarianism. This approach now does not matter how you do it, but then it focuses on the better good of the people. What we want is the better good of our people, ladies and gentlemen. Let our people first be empowered. Let them first develop. Then we can come and say that democracy, yes, because your voice has to be heard. Your voice has to be heard with a full tummy, ladies and gentlemen. There's no point in you just going and saying, my voice, on an empty tummy. My voice without a job. Ladies and gentlemen, let us embrace development before we think of democracy. Thank you.
I am going to go straight into the rebuttals of the points that have been raised by the first speaker and the second speaker of the affirmers of the motion that reads, development is more important than democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, I want first to reaffirm our line of argument, put it in your minds and give you something to compare as I am rebutting each and every one of the 4 points that have been raised by the affirmers. Our line of argument says, development is for the people, therefore democracy is the best way to define this development for the people. Now putting this in the frame of the 4 points that they have given you, they are talking about democratic goals being recognized better by the international organizations, the UN and so on. Ladies and gentlemen, I wonder at the source of the facts of these guys, or what gave them this deduction that there's been given priority of the development over democracy. Because as far as I'm concerned, whenever I see about the development of these nations that are underdeveloped, in the frame of that, always side by side, at par is the issue of democracy. Actually, they define and they say it that there is no development where there is no democracy. In that, they actually say that part of the development is democracy. They talk about the better good of our people. The better good of which people, if the interests that are being perpetrated are not those of the majority. Which our people, when we've got a few individuals, by virtue of whatever other form of governance that is not democracy, which would define the good kind of development, who would it focus on? The third point, they said they want to focus on development so that they can now talk about democracy for a people who are already developed. which people are already developed, of the few that will get to pool all the resources for themselves, or rather in a situation where we would have democracy deciding the proper way of allocating the resources to our development, and to empower which people if it is not for everyone. Now that is just in line with our line of argument, development for the people and the rest. Now the process of growth cannot be more crucial than democracy, because democracy defines which growth we are talking about and why it matters. Just to reaffirm our points, democracy allows for empowerment of every form and in the best of all forms, social, economic, political, and all forms. It defeats the purpose of development if whatever happens in terms of development is not for the people. And the last of our points, it helps the government to correct its mistakes and be accountable to the people. This is the whole point of having a people collective. Democracy superior to development. Thank you.